Well, if you want, I'll tell you, I'd love to just jump in. And if you want to give just a little bit of a background, I know you've got a very cool background. I think that'd be awesome. And then a little bit about you guys and what all you got going on and everything. Just a quick intro would be great.
Sure.
Before you do that, I've got a great question.
Uh-oh.
Do you know Rick Bowles?
The name is familiar. I know we both worked, I think, at Fiserv around the same time because I was there from 2013 until 2022.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't sure if you guys knew each other, and I talked to him this morning about you, and he was telling me that it's kind of about the same way. He's like, I think I remember her. And I looked
The
up,
name is familiar. Yeah.
yeah, he was kind of the go-to guy when somebody wants to evaluate a bank.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I did hear that he was working with y'all and yeah, because I came to the Fed Fizz round of last year. So I think that's when I kind of learned about it. And then I got the invitation. So I just signed up at the beginning of this week. So I'm very excited to join you all at the roundup this year as well. I love
All
that
right.
Fredericksburg area is very cool. I'll go anywhere where it's, wine, whatever it is. It's kind of the wine area of Texas.
Yeah,
So
that's
Yeah,
right.
Texas wine country, man, with
wine country, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody says it's the Napa of Texas, and it's like I've been to Napa and I've been to Texas, and I don't know which ones. I'm not a big wine guy, so I really don't care much one way or the other. But I do like all the vineyards. I think they're beautiful, and I enjoy all of it. But it's neat to get all the conferences and everybody has. They're all out in Chicago, New York, or what you never get out in the country a little, and
Yeah.
that's kind of neat.
Yep. Yeah, I like the area. It's definitely a very unique place to have a conference. So I'm looking forward to it. Excited to get
So
the invitation
Roxanna
and
was
sign
the
up.
name of my first girlfriend when I was in, like, I don't know, first grade.
What
And
was Roxanne?
yeah, so you're
Did
like the
she hear
second
that
person I've
song
ever
all the
known.
time? I always hear people sing that song to me, Roxanne.
Oh,
So,
that way. Yeah, right. That's great.
and they're like, have you ever heard that before? No, I've never heard it before.
No, no, that's right. I love it. So after Fiserv, how did you end up at Empyrean?
Yeah, so well, I'll go back a little bit further. I started out in banking actually. So first got into banking as Citigroup. They had like a 2-year rotational program for recent college graduates. So had a good opportunity there. I mean, they had a pretty big presence where I was just outside of Buffalo, New York. I'm from upstate New York, but made a decision that I did not want to live somewhere cold the rest of my life. So even though it was a great company, decided I was going to move to the Atlanta area. I've been here now for about 19 years. From there, I got into retail banking, so did that for a little while. And then at the urging of a family member was like, hey, you should get in the mortgage business. It's a good time to be in the mortgage business.
So
Did that in
2008.
2006. So it really wasn't a good time, but obviously I didn't know what was coming down the path. And I was actually I was working for a wholesale mortgage lender. So I was originating loans and working with brokers versus, directly to the borrowers. And we were doing subprime and Alt-A loans. So then 2007 hits, and obviously we know what happens there. So go from originating a couple $1 million a month in mortgages to doing like basically nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, very like screeching halt. So as I saw, companies shutting their doors and people being walked out of our business like every other day, I quickly went back into retail banking where I spent the next 5 years of my career. Then I decided, I want to get into a company that has a lot of opportunity for growth. So I was looking for a company where I could leverage my banking experience, whether it was more banking or something else, to get into a company that had a lot of growth potential, and came across Fiserv. I knew they had a big presence in the Atlanta area. I think it was through the check-free acquisition many, many years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and got into Fiserv, started in 2013, and I was with the same division the whole time. So I was there about 9 years. So when I talk to bankers, a lot of them have heard of IPS and Darrow, or they've heard of Prolog, so those names kind of ring a bell. And that was the group that I was with at Fiserv. Started in account management, from there moved into sales, from there moved into sales leadership, and I was a director of sales, managing a sales team for about 2.5 years prior to leaving the company. But definitely it was a good place to really have a lot of opportunity for growth, especially having such a big presence here in the Atlanta area.
Well,
But
and
then
Prologue,
I
yeah, I
was,
mean that like sets you up perfectly for where you're at now.
oh yeah, absolutely. So what happened was, I'd say the division of Fiserv that I was in had made some decisions over the course of about 18 months that they were going to start providing these solutions, or some of their solutions, not all, through like partnerships with other companies, right? Other vendors out there providing solutions for budgeting and ALM. So a few solutions had been sunset over the course of about 18 months. About that time, I started communicating with Chris Macklin and learned about an opportunity at Empyrean to build out a community banking sales team. So historically, Empyrean was mostly in the risk space of asset liability management. Didn't really make too much sense to have a team dedicated to community banking when a lot of community banks are outsourcing this within the institution. But with the release of some new solutions for budgeting and profitability, it really started to make sense to look at bringing somebody in to focus on that segment of the market. So I just felt like it was a really good time, try something new, and joined the company in May of 2022. And what's really cool is we brought in our first client October of 2022. I looked yesterday and we're at 82. So 82 new clients. Yay! My team was able to bring in to Empyrean just over the course of a couple of years. So it's been pretty exciting.
That's exactly where I wanted to head, actually, if you don't mind, Ed. So I've watched over a number of years and gotten to work with you guys and see a lot of good progress and everything. And I'd love for you to just touch on a little bit, because I mean, look, for everybody out there, if you were on the technology side of the world, to sign a bank a month would be really successful on anything that isn't, something really small like doormats for branches, right? Any kind of heavy software. What signing one customer a month is a lot, right? And you guys have blown that out. So you want to talk a little bit about why you think that is? I know the corporate overview and the pitch, but you specifically, and this is something I wanted to point out to bankers, our salespeople in our industry are probably the best vetters of software of all of us, because their lives depend on it, right? I've been in that spot. I understand the feeling. And so you picking winners, Roxanna, and I want to know why you pick Empyrean and why it's been successful from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, although I'm specifically focused on the community banking space, we have clients from under 100 million in assets up to over 100 billion in assets, all leveraging the same software. I mean, aside from just the growth in the community bank space, I know you guys interviewed our CEO, Chris Macklin. I think it was sometime last year, and he was mentioning, we're excited. We've seen a lot of growth in the last few years. We're at 130 software clients. That doesn't even focus on any of the outsourced clients we work with, just software clients. We're now over 260. So outside of just the community banking segment, we've seen a lot of growth across, financial institutions of all sizes. I think what really differentiates us is the fact that this is the niche. So this is like the only thing we're investing in. So, when I look at some of the solutions that are out there in the marketplace, there's a lot of, legacy software. It's been out there for a while. Maybe it's something you got on 10, 15 years ago, and it's still the same thing 15 years later, and it hasn't really seen much investment. I can understand in some of the larger fintech companies and the core providers. I mean, obviously they've got priorities and things to focus on, and there's a lot of different divisions within a company all competing for investment dollars. But with our solutions, that's not the case. I mean, this is all we're dedicated to is financial risk and performance management. So asset liability management, liquidity stress testing, deposit analytics, funds transfer pricing, budgeting and planning, profitability. So all under the same umbrella. It's fully integrated software. And the fact that we're only focused on the financial services vertical. So there's software out there too that, maybe it is more modern, newer software, but it's, they're selling to banks, they're selling to healthcare, they're selling to education and all over. With us, I mean, when we develop our software, we're developing it in-house. Our development team is part of, they're Empyrean employees. We're not outsourcing that. And we're working with all of our existing clients, or a set of them. We work with specific partner clients who sign up to help us develop the software and ensure that what we're providing to our clients and to them is what's going to meet the needs of financial institutions. And just to expand on that a little bit more, I think the fact that we are a smaller company, I mean, now we're at about 150 employees, but we're able to be very nimble. So there was a time, I think it was there was a solution, a budgeting solution that was sunset last year. And we, as a result of that, were able to bring on quite a few of their clients. And what really, I think, benefited us there is, I mean, they love the software, but they're like, there's something I'm accustomed to getting in my software it's on your roadmap, but I need it now. And it was around like daily GL reporting. And so in order for them to really make that commitment to move forward with us, we had to make a commitment to them that we will deliver this faster than we said we would. And so we committed to do that by the beginning of 2024. And actually, we even beat that and ended up delivering it at the end of 2023. So I think the fact that we're very nimble, we're small, we're able to really, get what our clients are saying and take that and then put it into the software and continue to just reinvest and put back into the software the things that are important to our clients.
So what was the thing? What was the thing that they really wanted to get out of that?
So on our budgeting solution, we had like monthly reporting, but they wanted to have daily reporting. So be able to, look at, today versus yesterday, or, this week versus last week. So the solution was SNL Banker. I mean, they sunset their solution. And as a result of that, there were people out there in the market looking for a new budgeting solution. And so in order for us to be able to bring over some of those clients, had to be able to deliver something that they were accustomed to getting, that they were like, we can't not have this. So
that's great stuff. I sit and listen to Elena McWilliams and Commissioner Cooper in Texas, talk about the big delay in data and getting that information. And, I remember sitting there in the audience thinking, what? There's no big delay, man. This stuff is daily at this point, right? And so I'm not sure exactly if I'm correlating exactly what their intention was. I'm not trying to pick on them just so much as to say that the solutions like what you guys have today, I want to know every morning where we're at on loans, where we're at on deposits, anything that's paid or anything that's, continuing to be past due. We need to focus what branch that came from, where we're at, what's going on. And then we're never going to achieve, our budget planning performance operation here without having tweaks as we go. Mm-hmm. and not having daily data. I mean, I can see why that was a big deal, man.
Yeah.
And that was a short timeline, Roxanna. I love your point, though. We've had similar situations where, there's a market event. We all love it when a competitor screws up, right? Or somebody sunsets something. But it's difficult, right? Occasionally, and this has happened a number of times to us, where somebody shows up and it's a customer base that it may be 5 times as many employees as we have. And it's like, let's just convert everybody overnight. And I've got roadmap implications. And I've got 90 days to figure all this out. And it's a real testament. I really want to point this out. It's a real testament that you're able to pull those things off. Mm-hmm. Because the stories that don't make headline news are all of the fumbles and all of the times that those situations don't get pulled off, right? And being able to do that is a real testament to you guys. So tip of the hat.
I was going to say for, Chris to be able to navigate things like that is it's a hell of a testament to a CEO. And
oh, absolutely.
Being a CEO and having, like Tanner said, we call them market events, right? Mm-hmm. So a competitor goes away or something happens like that, and it ends up with a windfall opportunity. It doesn't mean a windfall. It's an opportunity. If you can execute with your team and not destroy your current projects, your current roadmap, and all the things that you're trying to serve for your existing customers, but augment that. And, sometimes it's perfect, falls right in your lap, right in your sweet spot. And gosh, didn't know you were there, that kind of stuff. But it's hard. And to be able to do that and take advantage of those situations, again, I just think that's one of the testaments to leadership and CEOs that can pull that off in the right way.
Yeah, I think it's an important thing for everybody is company culture. So, even me leaving Fiserv and coming to a new company and, going from a huge company to a small company, I even knew people who kind of knew people within Empyrean, and I'm like, see what you can find out, and I would have to say I've just been blown away by the culture of the organization. I think it does all start with the CEO. You guys know Chris, he's a great guy. Yep. So just the culture of the organization, and he also ensures it's a really customer-centric organization. When I started just being in the risk space, I felt like every ALM customer we had was referenceable. I'm like, how does this even happen? As someone who's in sales, that's what you want. You want referenceable clients. You want clients speaking to one another, saying good things. So as we've released new software on the performance management side for budgeting and profitability, it's really important to him and everybody in the organization that we, do the same things we did on the ALM side to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our clients, putting them first from a product delivery standpoint to implementations to support and everything that's involved there. So it's very obvious just working within this company that, it's putting clients first is at the forefront of really anything that we do. So
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, I've been doing the data side of this since it was invented, I think. But
He says sometimes, Roxanna, he says, I've been doing bank data software since we did it on paper.
yeah, yeah, that's actually a true statement too. So yeah, when I was at Shusanoff, we built the first uh, software to analyze banks, right? Called Bank Search. And so I've been doing this a very long time. And some of the things that stunned me, even, today, like in the past year or so, you've watched, the AOCI situation out there. You've got people that just were not prepared for, who in the hell would have predicted the fastest rate increase in the last 2 years we've ever seen in history before? But at the same time, some of these, when you look at them, they weren't anticipating any rate increase. It's just like, whoa. So when you get to, the ALM side of banking, I'm going to be an asshole for a minute and just say some bad things. And, I'm literally stunned at some of the size of the bank, some of the sophistication of, or lack of sophistication to be able to understand this stuff. And so it really, to me, it's almost like personal, right? Because it's like, golly, because everybody's like, hey, can you give me the list of the guys who, behind, they're underwater on their bond portfolio. And it's like, I don't want to be the guy even delivering that list because it's not good for banking, right? But at the same time, there's a responsibility level to handle things. As again, back to CEO responsibility. When you guys come in with a program like what you have, from soup to nuts on what you're able to do for banking, we're heading these things off at the pass. You don't have to be an ALM expert to be able to walk in here and go, "What? We were about to make a huge mistake," and it, was pointed out to us. And so I guess what I'm trying to say, I think you guys are doing the Lord's work and helping bankers sometimes get out of their own way.
Yeah, I think that, what we've seen is obviously a lot of bankers are experiencing like a banking economy they've never experienced ever in their career, depending on your age, I guess, or it's been a very long time. So I think what they're finding is maybe the tools they leveraged a few years ago to do what they were doing isn't going to work for them now. And I think that's why we are having a lot more conversations with bankers around what they're doing for their budgeting process or what they're using for asset liability management or, what are they doing around profitability? A lot of time in the community banking space, we're finding, like I said, it's either manual processes, Excel, not doing much by way of anything, On the ALM side, like I said, a lot are outsourcing, but when we have in the community bank space anyways, but when we have conversations with these community banks, in light of everything that they've been experiencing, they may want us to bring it in-house, but they just don't have the resources or expertise to be able to do that. Something unique that Empyrean offers that I think is pretty cool is we do have outsourced services. So we do offer outsourced ALM and anything you could get from any outsourced provider. But we allow it to be integrated with our budgeting and planning solution. And basically what we do is we will build out your model as if you're going to run it using your chart of accounts, your specifications, what assumptions you want to run, that sort of thing. But instead of handing it over to you once you're implemented, we just run it for you. And then say your plan is, maybe in 12 months, we'll be at a place where we can take this over. And this is something we intend to do. We hand it over to you, you run it. If say you lose resources at any point, you can turn it back over to us. And it's just that flexibility.
Oh, wow.
Because if you're with an outsourced company now, chances are if you want to take it over at some point, you're gonna have to find somebody else and you're gonna have to go buy new software and learn new software. And we just have this flexibility to go back and forth between outsourcing to us and you running your model very easily. We've had larger clients take advantage of this when they're like, I lost my whole treasury team. I can't do this right now. And they turn it over to us. We run it and turn it back over to them. And then on top of that, it fully integrates with our budgeting solution. So it's a way to have that full integration between the finance and risk side, but not having the responsibility of having to run your ALM model yourself. So I think that's a cool differentiator, at least something we've heard from community banks that we offer that's not really out there today. So
Perfect. Perfect.
yeah,
Can I ask a sales question, Roxanna?
sure.
Uh, and not to get off Empyrean, I think you guys are great. I just want to get your perspective though. It's something that's I think been in a lot of conversation of late. It feels to me, and we could say fintech or vendor or bank technology, whatever word you want to use, but the distance between the technology of banking and the actual bankers, that distance, there used to be more trust and partnership. And I think in the last handful of years, we're starting to get a little bit closer together and have those conversations. But the last 10, 15, 20 years, I feel like that distance has grown tremendously. It's really abrasive relationships, pretty tough. And I think you have to ask the question of what sits in between the two, right? And I mean, we all know the consulting world, sometimes more than a little bit icky, definitely, maybe intentionally abrasive. I'm thinking about things like RFPs. I'm thinking about even things like partnerships and integrations. And look, especially when you try and have multiple parties involved and everybody has different politics and you kind of inherit partner politics, there's a lot in between those two areas. And so I wonder if you just touch on that from the sales perspective and the leadership side of that. It's a difficult thing, right? I mean, the trust is tough. All these other parties involved is tough. Would you just give us a little bit of your view on that of what is sales and sales leadership and working with banks look like objectively?
Yeah, I mean, what I say I've seen, and it's hard for me sometimes to compare what did I see as a sales leader 3.5, 4 years ago at Fiserv versus now, because I think there are differences when you're a sales leader in a large organization like Fiserv, and you're a sales leader in a small organization that still some people have never even heard of.
Mhm.
But I can say, just over the last, say, couple of years, what I've seen is just a lot more due diligence. And it probably does have something to do with maybe that lack of trust out
Right.
there in the market between bankers and vendors. And it just seems like we're having to jump through a lot more hoops. And it's a lot more of a time-consuming process to get anything done.
Which is ultimately cost for the bankers.
Yeah.
Right. I think about this a lot, and I think we all need to put the onus back on the banking community a little bit. That putting, here's a great example. If you put out an RFP for a large piece of software, I bet it costs $10,000 for each vendor to respond to that RFP, right? And people and resources and man hours, and you put that out to, half a dozen, that expense, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe it's coming out of your bank's pocket, but it's definitely coming out of community banking's pocket, right? So
Yeah.
we're in the right spirit and regulatory framework, trying to do good amounts of due diligence, but that trust lost, I
Mhm.
think, has really made that hurdle more necessary. And it increases all of our costs. It increases vendor management pain, et cetera, et cetera. So what do you think about all that? Is that
You guys are too nice, both of y'all. Let's
What do you
just,
think?
man, I'll tell you what, you get you got salesmen that have lied to people for so long, they don't trust anybody. And then it's like, well, I'm not a tech expert and I'm not a financial expert, so I need to bring in a consultant with the crazy idea that they are. And then we go through this process that, hey, there's going to be 3 or 5 people involved in this, companies. There's only going to be one winner, which means there's 3 or 4 losers, right? And then we go, gosh, the cost of this stuff is outrageous. No shit.
That's what I was trying to say, Roxana. And just wondering if you see that the same way and what we all might do better and work better together and kind of, close that gap a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I actually was talking to a woman on my sales team, and she just finished an RFP for someone who pretty much already selected us. I mean, they basically pretty much told us they're going with us, but then they come in after the fact, like, well, we have to go through this RFP process as part of our process. And like you said, it's almost like, why? You're just kind of extending time, costing more money. Like, what's the point of really doing that? So it's just overall from a just across the board due diligence when it comes to the RFP process or negotiating contracts. And a lot of time you've got legal parties, outside legal reviewing these things. It's just, it seems like the distance from the time we start an evaluation process. So from the time we have our very first conversation till the time, if we're selected, that we actually close a sale is taking longer now than I would say it was a year ago or even, 2 years ago. So it's definitely just a lot tougher of a process, I would say, when it comes to just getting through all of those steps and the due diligence. And then the interesting part is you'll have these conversations and then it's like, well, when do you want to leverage this tool? I want to be using it 3 months from now. I'm like, well, the implementation alone is going to take you about 5 months. And I can tell you that typically legal review and you add everything up. I mean, I shared an article, I think it was probably about a month ago on LinkedIn, written by one of my peers. He's our director of product management, about if you want to have a solution in place by a certain time frame, this is how you should back into when you should start the process of even evaluating. Because typically, from the time you start an evaluation, by the time you select somebody, due diligence process, everything all the way to signing a contract and then implementing, it's typically about a year or more, depending on what software you're implementing. But it's pretty often, especially budgeting software, you'd be like, oh, I want to use it for my 2025 budget, and I'm starting in September, and you're telling me this in July.
Yeah.
At least I don't lie. I know you said
That's it right
people
there.
lie, but I'm not going to tell them that they're going to have it. So,
We have a ton of bankers, and it's getting better. Let me say it that way. But for the longest time, there were bankers that were under some crazy misconception, and I don't know if this is a wives' tale that just kind of progressed through time, but they were like, no, I think our regulators demand that, this is a regulation that we have to go through this process. And I'm like, no, it's not. It never has been.
Yeah.
And, the due diligence process, absolutely. But the due diligence process doesn't mean you have to have an RFP and go through all this other junk. And so what we did was kind of use data to where, if somebody's got 856 institutions, I think we qualify, right?
Yeah, I probably don't need to see Roxanna's insurance certificate or find out if she's a U.S. citizen, right? I think we're good. Yeah.
Let's call Fiserv and just ream their ass about every little thing that we need. And it's like, I bet you they probably
Your
got
SOC
covered,
2
right?
bridge report is off.
the things that we have to send to people, it's
Right,
a long free list. It's a long
But the point being with all this, and this is such a huge point for bankers out there, you're increasing the cost of your own industry, and then you're complaining about it. And it doesn't, you can do one or the other, but you can't do both. And what we've got to do is fundamentally move this industry forward. And I'm not saying you should do things blindly, but I'm saying that there's ways to work. People have these conversations about what's the difference between a pioneer and a vendor. And it's like, hey man, just wake up and pretend you were a business owner for a second and go, how about everybody out there waste 80% of your cost and time that achieves nothing? And 20% is where you make all your money. Oh, the 80-20 rule, I've heard of that. Well, that's what we're doing to ourselves. There's a math problem right now with shrinking numbers of bankers, particularly in the community banks, and vendors, trying to make money and doing the things. And then we all say, gosh, wish there was more new innovation and cool companies like Empyrean, right? Well, how the hell are they supposed to do that?
Right. So support companies like Empyrean if we want to see a healthier ecosystem.
And that's
I'll take a little support too. I'll take some airline miles. I like candy bars, whatever you got.
But that's really the deal, is there's ways to streamline this process and go faster. Bankers helping bankers, man, we do this. I got a text from Matthew yesterday. He's like, how many people do we talk to a week? And I'm like,
it's been a busy week.
I'm on the phone with one right now, so sorry to talk. I can't talk. But it's a process that's being just absolutely disrupted like crazy. And I think bankers are finally beginning to figure out. That's what, Tanner, I think you were trying to allude to there. That we went through a dark period of hatred, right? And a reliance on a process that's, let me just say this out loud. If the process that we've been doing for the last 30 years worked, why don't we have the best products?
Perfectly said.
The process is broken. All right. So what we're really all doing here together, and man, I appreciate you doing this so much. But, and again, the roundup and the rest of it, all of what we're all trying to do here is let's streamline this process. And back to what Tanner said earlier on trust, somebody had to step up and say, look, I mean, not only will I shoot myself, I'll set myself on fire. We will not hurt a banker. Okay. And when the banking community deals with you over and over and over, and they finally reach the point where like, many of the smartest people in the world will take care of everything and really help us out, or tell us they don't know the answer right off the bat. We're not here to play a game with anybody. And so companies like yours all of a sudden get accelerated to the forefront. Good guys. look at the growth. We call it trajectory, and it's one of the major factors in selecting a vendor. I shouldn't even say a vendor, a company to work with to help you advance your banking into a new level, right? And
You bet.
and I'm gonna shut up here in just a second. But one more thing I wanted to say that's really important, that I've been trying to kind of really pound this message home to everybody, that in the past we would have the CEO come in, we do strategic planning, right? We have all of our CFO stuff, we're financial numbers out everywhere. This is great. And then we're going to talk about making some technology changes. They get up and leave the room. And we got the CTO in here. We got these other guys in here, consultants in here, and we make that decision independently. Okay, that is a huge mistake, because what we're finding now is that, and probably this should have been true 30 years ago, that you want to achieve a strategic plan that's a financial performance outcome. That includes technology in that conversation. A lot of times today, the technology solution is part of achieving that plan. That's what you were talking about earlier about, bring this in-house or out-house, or we can move this back and forth as you need.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a flexible technology solution. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, now for a CEO that says, hey man, Ali or president, the technology is just over my head, goes too fast, can't keep up. The good news is, because it has actually accelerated so much recently, this is a great time to jump in and start trying to learn these things. Because what you knew 5 years ago doesn't mean shit anymore. Yeah. So it's really kind of a neat thing. And when you're talking to cutting edge companies like yours or others, or dealing with anybody that wants to talk to anybody, I'm okay with that. Talk to people that know what the hell they're doing. And you can begin to bridge this gap in a new way. And this is actually what we all believe is the future of banking, that we can blend technology into the conversation so the CEO doesn't leave the room when we're having a strategic planning and technology conversation of how to achieve performance at a higher level. Now, if we can pull that off, okay, cool. Well, where do I start? Pick up the phone. We'll help you.
Roxanna, I appreciate you diving on that grenade for me. I thought we might get him to rant a little bit, and it clearly
you did it.
Hey, I do though. Roxanna, I want to give you a couple of minutes for just final thoughts. Anything else we haven't talked about, or anything else that's just generally on your mind? I appreciate the hell out of you guys, and want to give you a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I would say, like you said, I feel like there is sometimes this lack of trust, right, between bankers and vendors. And I feel like in the community banking space, even more, which is what I'm focused on, what I'm dedicated to, I feel like community banking is all about relationships, so I appreciate the fact that I work for a company that, not only when we look at, how can we make our solutions affordable for the community banking market? How can we give them something that they can leverage, a tool now that as they grow and their needs change, they can continue to leverage over time? He's also, Chris is also the kind of guy, he's like, if you can go sit down and have lunch with somebody, go sit down and have lunch with somebody. So having that ability to just build relationships, I think that's key. I don't know if it's going to solve for kind of the things that, we're experiencing when it comes to deal velocity and trying to get through a sales cycle and try not to waste too much of anybody's time. But it's been great just to be a part of an organization that I feel like is doing everything they can to really put clients first and expand into this community banking market that historically we weren't really in as much. So it's just overall, it's been a really great experience, and so excited to be here. And I'm glad you guys let me have an opportunity to join you on this podcast. So
you bet.
I'll tell you what, your trajectory speaks for itself.
That.
So and what you know about that relationship, that's the trust factor we're talking about. So when you gain that trust and you actually have that, and bankers talk to each other, and that's a large part of where you get that trajectory and that success, and you guys are killing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we keep killing it. That's the plan. So
I'm sure you will. We'll look forward to having you on again down the line, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the roundup here pretty soon.
Yeah, see you guys at the roundup.
All right. Thanks a bunch.
Bye.
See you guys later.